What's going on, friends? Logan Myers here, returning from the Upside Down to review the greatest show on Netflix right now, the return of Stranger Things. You know, I reviewed the first season last year and, ended up binge watching it in like 2 days. Same story here. My wife and I got back from vacation and we ended up knocking the show out in 2 days. Couldn't stop watching it, Stranger Things has a way of bringing you in as an audience and not letting you go, making you watch and watch, to see what happens in the next episode until it's all over with. Stranger Things is created by the Duffer brothers, and they have a really great way of writing a story that pays homage to a lot of 80s, films and music and things like that. At the end of last season, Will returns from the Upside Down, coughs up that slug, and we're seeing where Will is at today in Hawkins. After the return from the Upside Down, he's not 100% there. He's still kind of off, and people are noticing this. And he's getting these visions of being in the Upside Down that he can't really shake off. It continues to happen when, in the beginning of the show, him and his friends are at the arcade. Lucas and Dustin and Mike, they're all playing an arcade game, and Will kind of goes off and turns into the Upside Down, and he sees this giant shadow monster up in the sky. Let's talk about that top-notch CGI. Films have a tough time, portraying creatures and things like this, but Stranger Things, man, their effects, their CGI this season are top-notch, amazing. The fear in Will's eyes as he's looking up into the sky, that's just brilliant. And that really sets up the rest of the season. The 9 episodes is really, focused on Will. Last season we only saw him in a few episodes, but this season he's pretty much in every episode, and he does an excellent performance. What he's going through after the Upside Down and still being a part of the Upside Down as we, find out throughout the episodes, and where all the friends are at after the first season. We had my favorite character, Dustin. He's still funny as hell, and he always goes pearly whites, got his teeth fixed. And you got Lucas and Mike, and Mike's kind of off this season as well. Since 11 has been gone, he's in love with her, and he's still trying to reach out to her, but nobody knows where she is at, except for Jim Hopper. Our favorite cop from the first season is back, David Harbour. Another great performance this season, and he's hiding out 11 in a cabin in the middle of the woods, kind of like Evil Dead style. But that's where 11 is staying. He's taking care of her. They have a really good father-daughter relationship this season, and he feeds her, Eggo waffles every morning, and make sure she watches TV and doesn't leave the place because he doesn't want her to get killed, because people are out there looking for her and they don't know where she's at. And this season we get introduced to a bunch of new characters. We have Bob, played by Sean Astin. He's Joyce's love interest. He's kind of a goofball. He works at Radio Shack. He's like a computer geek. There's a lot of throwbacks to the Goonies and other films of that time. There's one particular scene in this season where he's talking about buried treasure, and obviously he's talking about Goonies, in which he played Mikey in the Goonies, if you didn't know that. Just a lot of moments like that throughout the show that you notice and kind of makes you smile. 2 other new characters we have: Maxine, or Mad Max as the kids call her, fiery little redhead that throws a wrench into the spokes for the 4 group of boys. She's the new girl in town, and then her older brother Billy, which is kind of a mix between Zac Efron meets Toby Keith. If you guys have seen the meme going around, there it is. With 11 being gone, they had to throw in, a new character into the group of kids, and, Max does an excellent job with that. She's kind of the love triangle between Dustin and Lucas, and they're always kind of going back and forth. And then early on in the show, they kind of foreshadowed the love triangle when they're playing the arcade game, which is kind of cool. With Billy's character, I just didn't buy it. They need a douchebag, in the cast. This season, last season was Steve, and this season he did a complete 180, and he's a really great stand-up performance, and you like him this season, which is odd. He was one of my favorite characters of season 2. So they brought Billy in just to take over that douchebag role, and he played it pretty solid. Billy was an asshole from start to finish. Him and Steve got into a fist fight. I just didn't really buy his character, Billy's character. It just didn't make sense, and you got to figure out why this kid's so angry when you find out why he's kind of messed up in the head. It just was predictable. And another new character is 8, which is another lab rat from Hawkins' laboratory, like 11. Basically kind of her sister, but she's the number 8, and she has these powers. And the worst episode of this season is episode 7. That's kind of around 11 meeting 8 and their whole story dynamic. And it just really didn't make sense. It was kind of in left field, and going from episode 6 to 7 with these characters, introducing 8 and these group of punk rock kids. The last 2 episodes are the best, definitely, of the series. With all these stories going on, you have Steve and the group of kids, Dustin and Lucas, fighting off these demo dogs and getting rid of them. The lab being taken over by all these creatures from the Upside Down, and Hopper and Joyce are together, and Bob are at the lab, and they're all different places, but they'll eventually meet up to take down the shadow monster and the creatures from the Upside Down. And there's a big story about the underground. There's Steve and the kids go down there with their masks and weapons and want to take out these creatures and put a stop to them. And this season you have Jonathan and Nancy. They kind of have a newfound relationship and are together, and they're both awkward together, trying to fight off all the monsters at the lab and getting rid of them once and for all. Show up at the end to meet up with the rest of the group and Steve and the kids. And Steve is really great this season. Like I said, he's watching out for these kids. He's like the glorified babysitter and making sure these young kids, Dustin and Lucas and everybody else, they don't get killed. As you remember, the first season, 11 opens up this gate and lets these creatures out. And you have to think that maybe her story has to intertwine with this season. Is she opened this, so where's she at? So eventually, if you've seen the trailers, you'll know 11 shows back up towards the end, and it's great because she has to stop what she started and basically close that gate. CGI in this particular scene where 11 shows up with Hopper at the lab, and you see all these creatures and the gate, and she has to close it with her powers. There's like orange and red colors and just explosive and beautiful CGI. Throughout this, season, we're finding out what has happened to Will and these drawings he's making to these underground tunnels, which is basically a hub for all these creatures, these demo dogs and demogorgons and all these creatures. And, coming up to the end of the season, they, figure out what has happened to Will and the best way to exorcise him, get rid of this demon that's taken over his body. And Joyce is, put in the situation, should we take care of this or should we wait for Will to die? So she had to make some really, really tough decisions this season. And Winona Ryder was just really excellent this season. The first season she was kind of annoying, but this season she was really convincing as Will and Jonathan's mother, and she's doing whatever she can to save her young child. So the final episode, they're in this cabin and all this heat and trying to exorcise Will was just really great, and you can tell the intensity in their eyes, what they're trying to do and save. In the final episode, the snowball, the kids all coming together to dress up and dance and have a good time and be kids, be teenagers. It's just a great, great episode and scene because there's a lot of 80s throwbacks. It reminded me a lot of like a John Hughes movie, like 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink. At the school dance, they're all dressed up in their 80s attire. And Dustin, funny scene, Dustin learns about Steve's hair, like how to make his hair all perfect. So Dustin shows up at the dance with Steve, and he has the 80s hair, and it's totally funny. It's not all a happy ending, as you would think. Obviously, they already signed up for season 3 of Stranger Things, so not the last time we're going to see the Upside Down or the Shadow Monster. Overall, I love Stranger Things season 2. I was really, really looking forward to the show since they released the trailers, the Halloween theme, and the thriller music, really built up the anticipation of this season. And, I was not disappointed. There's only one episode that really sucks, is episode 7. So if you guys haven't watched it, you could probably skip that one. It's not needed and makes no sense with the show. But everything else, I love the directing, the writing. Duffer Brothers brought another great chapter to the show, and really looking forward to the next season. The cast across the board was really great. The stand-up performances, I would say, is Steve and Dustin. They were really, really great. Hopper and Joyce were great this season. So I'm going to give Stranger Things Season 2 a 4.5 out of 5 Demi Dogs. So if you guys checked out Season 2 yet, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe. This is Logan Myers signing out from the Hawkins Laboratory. Until next time, cheers!